When I reflect upon the modern conception of love and marriage, I find myself troubled, not by its beauty, for love remains one of the noblest aspirations of humankind, but by its delusion. Humanity continues to worship love as if it were a divine force, untainted by the imperfections of the psyche. We dream of love that will complete us, heal us, and liberate us from our own loneliness. Yet, beneath this romantic ideal lies a far older truth, that love is, at its core, the continuation of the unconscious by other means. In my years of listening to men and women confess their private sorrows, I learned that love rarely emerges from freedom. It arises from necessity, from the restless play of desires that we do not command. We imagine that we choose our partners, yet in reality, it is our unconscious that chooses for us. The lover's face becomes a mirror for the repressed the parent's image, the forbidden's object, the ideal we could never embody ourselves. Thus, when one says, "I love you," it often means, "I recognize in you the ghost of someone I have long lost." Modern marriage, however, complicates this ancient instinct. In earlier times, marriage was an arrangement of survival, a social contract. Love, if it arrived, was a fortunate accident. Today, love has become the foundation of marriage, and therein lies the tragedy. The modern psyche demands that one person satisfy an impossible triad: to be a companion, a sexual ideal, and a spiritual soulmate. The failure of this dream is not accidental. It is structural. No single human being can fulfill the multiplicity of unconscious roles we project upon them. When two people fall in love, what they truly encounter is not each other, but their own unconscious reflected back. The beloved becomes the screen upon which the lover projects forgotten emotions, long buried fears, and unmet childhood needs. At first, this projection feels divine. Each believes they have discovered their missing half. But as time passes, the idealization falters. The face of the beloved becomes too real, too human. The lover begins to resent the other for failing to uphold an image that was never theirs to carry. Thus begins the silent tragedy of marriage, the slow disillusionment of fantasy by reality. I have often said that civilization demands repression. To live together in peace, we must restrain our instincts. But marriage demands something far greater, the constant negotiation between instinct and ideal. In the closed circle of intimacy, the unconscious finds fertile soil. The lover's voice, the partner's gesture, the smallest neglect each can awaken a buried wound. What appears to be a trivial domestic quarrel is often an eruption of the unconscious, an echo from the earliest conflicts between child and parent. A husband's jealousy may not be about his wife at all, but about a rivalry first felt toward his father. A wife's disappointment may not concern her husband's failures, but the absence of the nurturing love she longed for in her mother. In this way, marriage becomes not merely a social institution, but a psychoanalytic theater, where ancient conflicts are reenacted under the guise of daily life. Love, therefore, is not innocent. It is a disguised repetition of the past, a transference. We love where we once suffered, and we seek redemption in the same place that wounded us. Every passion conceals an attempt at healing. Every disappointment reveals the persistence of a childhood illusion that someone, someday, will love us perfectly. Yet this illusion is precisely what makes love so intoxicating. The fantasy of perfect union consoles the ego against the truth of its incompleteness. The psyche, ever divided between desire and reality, longs for synthesis. Love promises this synthesis. Marriage demands that it be sustained. But no psyche can maintain such equilibrium indefinitely. The repressed returns. The lover becomes the enemy, the savior becomes the jailer, and affection turns into ambivalence. In analysis, I observe that the unconscious knows nothing of marriage. It recognizes only desire. The ego may sign the contract, but the ID does not consent. Thus, fidelity becomes not a moral question, but a psychological struggle between repression and impulse. One may love sincerely and yet desire another passionately, for the unconscious does not respect social boundaries. This does not make human beings immoral, it makes them divided. Modern culture, however, refuses to accept this division. We are told that love should be pure, that marriage should be eternal, that happiness should be guaranteed. These moral imperatives are not realities, but symptoms of a culture that fears the unconscious and compensates through idealization. When love falters, we do not question our ideals. We blame our partners or ourselves. We declare, "He changed," or "She stopped loving me." But love does not end, it transforms. What dies is the illusion that love can remain untouched by the psyche's depths. Marriage, then, is a crucible of the unconscious. It forces two egos to coexist within the same psychological space, each with its own hidden drives and defenses. One might say marriage begins as a romance between two conscious selves and ends as a dialogue between two unconscious worlds. In this dialogue, understanding can emerge only if both partners are willing to confront the shadow within themselves. Most are not. They prefer projection to introspection. They would rather accuse than analyze. Thus, what could become a journey of mutual individuation degenerates into mutual blame. The unconscious, however, is patient. It waits. It speaks through dreams, through slips of the tongue, through moments of inexplicable tenderness and sudden rage. If marriage has any hope of surviving, it lies in the capacity of both partners to listen, not merely to each other, but to their own inner voices. For love cannot heal what one refuses to face. In the analytic sense, marriage is an invitation to self-knowledge. The other becomes the mirror through which one glimpses the unknown parts of oneself. To love truly, one must have the courage to encounter one's own unconscious without disguise. But modern love is afraid of depth. It seeks constant novelty, eternal excitement. It mistakes pleasure for intimacy and attention for understanding. The result is a restless culture of disappointment, in which people move from one relationship to another, hoping to escape what follows them from within. The psychoanalytic view of love is therefore tragic and hopeful at once. Tragic, because it strips love of its illusions. Hopeful, because it offers the possibility of genuine understanding. Love cannot save us, but it can reveal us. Marriage cannot perfect us, but it can expose the truths that liberation requires. In the crucible of intimacy, the ego is humbled. It learns that to love another is also to confront the stranger within oneself. The illusion that marriage should make us happy is a symptom of the modern ego's grandiosity. Happiness was never the goal of human existence. Adaptation and meaning were. The ancients knew this intuitively. Love was seen as a passion, something that overwhelms reason, that can lead to both ecstasy and destruction. The modern mind, obsessed with control, seeks to domesticate love, to make it safe. But love resists domestication. It belongs to the realm of instinct, not reason. To marry love is to attempt to chain a storm. This is why so many relationships oscillate between desire and resentment. Desire thrives on distance. Marriage destroys distance. When two people live under the same roof, they witness the other's humanity in full, their weakness, their vanity, their pettiness. The idealized lover of courtship becomes the flawed partner of daily life. And yet, in this very disillusionment lies the possibility of mature love. For only when the mask falls can one begin to love the person rather than the projection. True love, if it exists, begins after disillusionment. It is the acceptance of the other's imperfections, not as compromises, but as realities. To love maturely is to see clearly, without the fog of fantasy. But this clarity demands sacrifice, the sacrifice of omnipotent expectation. Most lovers are unwilling to make it. They would rather preserve their illusions than face the ordinariness of real life. Thus, they remain trapped in an endless pursuit of the ideal partner, never realizing that the object they seek is not external, but internal. The unconscious, in its wisdom, uses love to remind us of what we lack. It is not satisfied by possession. It thrives on longing. The happiest marriages are not those without conflict, but those in which conflict becomes a path to deeper understanding. When partners cease to interpret each other's neuroses as personal attacks, they begin to glimpse the larger drama, the interplay of psychic forces that transcend both. It has been said that psychoanalysis reduces love to biology and repression. This is a misunderstanding. Psychoanalysis does not diminish love. It demystifies it. To know that love arises from the depths of the unconscious is not to degrade it, but to recognize its power. Love is the most refined expression of instinct, the meeting point of the biological and the spiritual. But its power can destroy as easily as it can transform. The difference lies in awareness. To be aware in love is to know that every affection carries its shadow. Every embrace conceals an anxiety. Every vow of fidelity hides a struggle between desire and guilt. Only by acknowledging these tensions can we love without self-deception. The analyst's task, and perhaps the lover's too, is not to eliminate conflict, but to render it conscious. For the unconscious, when left unacknowledged, governs us with an invisible hand. If modern men and women suffer in love, it is because they demand too much from it. They expect love to cure their existential emptiness, to silence their inner divisions. But love cannot perform this miracle. It can only reveal where healing is needed. The true work of marriage is not the pursuit of happiness, but the pursuit of understanding, the slow transformation of projection into perception, illusion into insight. And yet, there is tenderness even in illusion. Without fantasy, life would be unbearable. The challenge is not to eradicate the dream, but to see it clearly, to know that one is dreaming. For only then can love evolve from compulsion to compassion, from repetition to creation. In the end, I do not condemn marriage. I see in it one of civilization's great experiments, the attempt to reconcile the individual's instinctual life with the demands of society. It is a difficult experiment, often painful, sometimes noble, but it remains the laboratory of the soul, where the hidden forces of human nature reveal themselves most clearly. So I say this, not as a moralist, but as a physician of the mind. If you would love truly, do not seek perfection. Seek awareness. If you would marry wisely, do not demand happiness. Demand growth. For the unconscious will have its way, whether you acknowledge it or not. The only freedom we possess is to bring light into the darkness, to make the unknown known. Love is not the opposite of knowledge. It is one of its paths. To understand love is to understand oneself, and to understand oneself is the beginning of wisdom.